Hey everyone, welcome back. On the same day, we learned that the Supreme Court decided not to take up Snope and Ocean State, effectively allowing bans on semi-automatic rifles and magazines to stay in place across the country. We also found out that another major case is headed to the court next week. This one could finally bring some clarity to the Second Amendment questions that millions of Americans have been asking. I know a lot of people out there are frustrated. Many have lost faith in the Supreme Court, and honestly, I get it. I'm angry too. But now is not the time to give up. It's the time to push forward, and this upcoming case gives us a real opportunity to do that. So today, we're going to talk about the new case moving up to the Supreme Court and why it could be so important. Before we get into the details, if you appreciate content that keeps you informed and supports your Second Amendment rights, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really means a lot, and I appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to support the channel. So let's get into what's happening. Yesterday, after the court denied both Snope and Ocean State, social media and online forums were flooded with reactions. People were upset, disappointed, and wondering what this all means going forward. But despite all that frustration, there's one thing I didn't see: people giving up. Not a single person said, "That's it, I'm done, I'm out." And that tells me something important. We still have the numbers, we still have the momentum, and the fight isn't over. As I was scrolling through those reactions, something caught my eye. It came from the California Rifle and Pistol Association, and it involves Duncan v. Bonta, a case that's about to grab serious national attention. At first, Duncan didn't get a ton of attention outside California. It was seen as a state-specific fight. Yes, it went to the Supreme Court once before, where it was granted, vacated, and remanded, but mostly it was Californians keeping an eye on it because of how directly it impacted them. But now Duncan is going back up to the Supreme Court, and this time the stakes are national. This is arguably the strongest magazine ban challenge the court has ever seen. That doesn't guarantee the court will take it. They could conference it again and again, then decide to pass. But there's also no good reason for them not to hear it, especially after Justice Kavanaugh suggested they might take one of these cases within the next term or two. Duncan could be that case. What makes Duncan stand out is that it's a complete case. It's gone through the full process. It was ruled on based on its merits. It has already been up to the Supreme Court once, and now it's ready again. For anyone unfamiliar, Duncan v. Bonta challenges California's ban on magazines holding more than 10 rounds. It's the case that gave California what became known as Freedom Week. If you lived in California at the time, or even if you've since moved away, you probably remember it. That week was a game changer. Thanks to an injunction from Judge Roger T. Benitez, Californians were able to buy standard capacity magazines without restrictions for the first time in years. And ever since, Judge Benitez has been called Saint Benitez by many in California for standing up to the state's overreach. So here's where things get interesting. Duncan v. Bonta is once again heading to the Supreme Court, and this time, it's shaping up to be one of the most important Second Amendment cases in the country. While it started as a California issue, it's now positioned to have national implications. For those who don't know, Duncan challenges California's ban on magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. When this case first went through the courts, it led to what became known as Freedom Week in California, a brief window when residents were finally able to purchase standard capacity magazines without limits. That moment was made possible by a ruling from Judge Roger T. Benitez, who many in California now refer to as Saint Benitez, for his strong defense of gun rights. At the time, Duncan mostly flew under the national radar. It was a fight that Californians were leading, and unless you lived there, you may not have followed it closely. But now, this case is stepping back into the national spotlight. And what makes it so significant is that it's already gone through the full legal process. The arguments have been heard. The lower courts have ruled. It's complete and ready for review. Exactly the kind of case the Supreme Court typically looks for when deciding whether to step in. That doesn't mean it's a done deal. The court could still push it aside, just like they did with Snope and Ocean State. But there's a real reason to be hopeful here. Justice Kavanaugh previously hinted that the court might be ready to take up a Second Amendment case in the next term or so, and Duncan fits the bill perfectly. If they take it, this could be the case that finally forces the Supreme Court to clarify where the line is when it comes to magazine bans, and by extension, what limits, if any, are allowed under the Second Amendment. This isn't just about California anymore. If the court hears Duncan and rules in favor of gun owners, it could set a precedent that impacts states across the country. That's why this moment matters, and why we can't afford to sit on the sidelines. Look, I'll be honest. My confidence in the Supreme Court, like many of you watching, has taken a serious hit lately. It's frustrating, it's disheartening, and at times it feels like we're being ignored. But that doesn't mean we stop. That doesn't mean we give up. Because this is about our rights, our fundamental freedoms, and surrender simply isn't an option. We keep going. We bring more cases. We raise our voices. And I'm going to keep doing my part to make sure everyone who's willing to listen knows exactly what's happening. That's how we move forward, by staying informed, by speaking out, and by standing together. If you're watching this and you're feeling discouraged, I get it. But now's the time to get involved. Join organizations that are actively fighting to restore our rights. Support legal teams that are willing to take these battles to court. Talk to others, share what you've learned, and help grow the movement. Because when we're louder, when we're bigger, and when we're united, that's when real change becomes possible. Now, thankfully, we've got a new case heading to the Supreme Court next week, and this one is strong. I'm genuinely looking forward to reading the official petition from the California Rifle and Pistol Association. I know CRPA, along with Michelle and Associates, have some of the most experienced legal minds in this fight. I have a lot of confidence in what they're bringing forward. As soon as the petition is released, I'll go through it and share everything you need to know right here. I just wanted to give you all a heads up so you're aware of what's coming and why it matters. Thanks so much for watching. I truly appreciate each and every one of you who continues to support the channel. Stay informed, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.